I was diagnosed with HIV back in 2015. I was very lost, but I was recommended a peer worker whose name was Happiness. And she told me, Charlie, with the medication that we have now, you have a second chance at life, so what do you want to do with it? And this struck me. I'd always wanted a second chance at life. My name's Charlie, and this is my story. I grew up in England, in a place called Essex, and growing up, I always felt different. I always just wanted to hang out with the girls and dress up in my nan's clothes and jewellery. I wasn't interested in what the boys were doing. I didn't want to play sports or football. And this was fine until I got into school. And then I realised that that difference would lead me to being bullied, both verbally and physically. And I didn't really feel like I had anyone to turn to. My parents had always made comments growing up about the way I dressed, acted, or the friends that I had, or the toys that I played with. So I didn't really feel like I could talk to them about what was going on at school. And then when I was 13 and I went into high school, I found something that would help me feel safe, confident, and secure, and that was drugs and alcohol. It started off by smoking a bit of weed, taking benzos and drinking in parks. That then quickly escalated to harder drugs. By the time I was 18, I was using every day, and that's what led me into meeting my ex-partner. I'd always felt like was a blessing and a curse at the same time. It was a blessing because with his support, I came out as gay and I started living true to myself. He also got me an interview working on a psychiatric ward. I was finally making a decent income at something I was naturally really, really good at, and I could also use as well, so it was perfect for me. But it was a curse because the relationship quickly turned abusive. And after one incident, I started to question, do I have HIV? This thought quickly spiraled into an obsession, and it was something that I thought about from the moment I woke up to the moment I fell asleep. I would spend hours Googling symptoms and convincing myself that I'd passed HIV on to everyone I came into contact with. After a couple of weeks of this, I built up the confidence to go and get tested. And then about a week later, the results came back negative. This gave me some relief, but after a couple of days, the thoughts started to slowly creep back in. You know, the test was wrong, you do have HIV, you're passing it on to this, that, the other person. So I was kind of stuck in this cycle for the next 2 years of violence at home, going into work, experiencing violence and distressing situations, all with the constant worry that I was living with HIV. Until finally, after a violent incident with my ex, I decided to leave. I was lucky enough that my parents allowed me to move back in with them, but I was left a shell of a person. I hated myself. So I was using like I'd never done before, and I was now also sleeping around with anybody that would have me to try and just find that self-love. This went on for a couple of months, and then I started to get sick. It started off as this like gagging sensation, which then led to one of the worst flus I'd ever had. I was bedbound for about a week. And then after that, it was some really intense aches and pains throughout my whole body. I didn't think nothing of this. I just kind of put it down to my lifestyle until one day when I was getting out of the shower and I looked in the mirror, I saw this huge red rash spread across my whole chest. And it was in that moment that all the research I'd done about HIV just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I remember I had to grab hold of the sink because I thought I was going to pass out. I knew what was going on and I knew what I needed to get tested. So I did. And even though I'd convinced myself for the last 2 years that I'd had HIV, I don't think anything could have prepared me to actually hearing the doctor say those words. It was like I went into shock. I could see her mouth moving, but I couldn't hear anything. And I just had to get out of there. So I just ran out of the clinic and I just obliterated myself. I didn't want to be alive anymore. I couldn't see a future. So I was living out of my car for a while because I was in so much shame I couldn't go back to my parents' house. But finally I did, and I told them what was going on, and they were as shocked and scared as I was, and they did their best to support me. I engaged back with the clinic, and that's where I met the lovely peer worker, Happiness. But unfortunately, I couldn't commit to anything. I was living in a total darkness and I couldn't see a way out. As a last-ditch effort, my mum took me to see a therapist who she'd been recommended to by a friend. And little did I know that this person was going to change my whole life. With her help, we unraveled the complete mess of a life that I had made. I quit my job, started focusing on myself, stopped using drugs and alcohol to numb myself. I really worked hard on myself over the next 3 years. It was a lot of self-reflection, isolation and motivation, but I finally became somebody that I was proud of. But for all the good and peace that I created, I was bored. So when my friend told me that she was going to Asia and then to Australia, it was a no-brainer to go with her. So with the help of my doctor and my psychologist, I packed up a year's worth of medication and I left the UK and I never looked back. I spent the next 6 years traveling and having experiences and adventures that I never dreamed was possible. I finally became somebody who I always knew that I was, and I fell in love with life. And then I ended up in Fremantle, Perth. I found my people, I met my partner and I settled down. And then one day I'm scrolling through different volunteer options and I see the opportunity to volunteer as a peer worker at WAAC. And I felt ready. I felt like I wanted to give something back. So I went along to the training and I was lucky enough to get the job. And so now I am working as a peer worker, able to give people that support that I had and help give people hope when they feel like there is none. And that's what leads me here. So if you've just been diagnosed with HIV, you're going to be feeling scared, isolated, alone. You're going to be feeling dirty and ashamed. But I want to tell you that there is nothing to be ashamed of. This could be your second opportunity at life. Live how you want to live. Be free, be happy, be healthy, and don't let anything get in your way, because you deserve to be loved. You deserve to live a life that you've always dreamed of, and it is possible for everyone.